Mercedes were not proven to be hiding a scandal in Barcelona. But they may have exposed something even worse. Kimi Antonelli was 4 laps away from second place, 4 laps away from saving massive championship points, and 4 laps away from proving Mercedes still had control. Then the power unit failed. And everything cracked open. This was not one random breakdown. It was the second terminal power unit-related failure in just 3 races. It happened while Mercedes were already under technical scrutiny. It happened with the failed unit heading back to Brixworth. It happened while Hamilton was winning for Ferrari. And it happened to the teenage championship leader Mercedes cannot afford to lose trust from. Now Toto Wolff has a nightmare he cannot talk his way out of. A fast car that may be fragile. A title fight bleeding points. A garage already tense with Russell and Antonelli. And rivals asking the question Mercedes fear most. Was Barcelona just bad luck, or did it reveal the problem they could no longer keep hidden? Subscribe to the channel. Barcelona was supposed to protect Mercedes from the noise. Instead, it made the noise impossible to ignore. Before the race, Mercedes still had the one thing every team uses to silence criticism: speed. George Russell had taken pole. The car looked competitive. The circuit rewarded power. And Kimi Antonelli, the teenage championship leader, had the chance to turn a complicated weekend into a controlled one. That mattered. Because Mercedes were not arriving in Spain with a clean, simple story. They were already carrying pressure from every direction. Ferrari were rising. Hamilton was becoming more dangerous in red. Russell and Antonelli were locked in a tense internal fight. And Mercedes' power unit, the very thing that was supposed to be one of their biggest strengths, was already under scrutiny. So Barcelona was not just another race. It was a test. A test of speed. A test of reliability. A test of discipline. A test of whether Mercedes could keep all the pressure inside the garage from spilling into the open. For most of the race, it looked like they might survive it. Not perfectly, but enough. Hamilton was attacking the story from the front. Ferrari had made the right strategic call, and Mercedes had already lost the clean victory they wanted. Russell had started on pole, but the race was slipping away from him. That alone would have hurt. But Antonelli was still there. And that was the lifeline. He was running second. He had moved ahead of Russell. He was giving Mercedes something valuable to hold on to, a major result for their championship leader on a weekend where Ferrari had found momentum. That is why the final laps were so important. Mercedes did not need a perfect ending anymore. They needed a safe one. Second place would have changed the whole conversation. It would have allowed Wolff to walk into the post-race interviews with a stronger defense. He could have said the team had pace. He could have said Ferrari won the strategy battle, but Mercedes still scored heavily. He could have said Antonelli delivered under pressure, Russell remained strong, and the championship picture was still under control. That version of the story was waiting. Then the car stopped. And in Formula 1, when a car stops at the end of a race, it does more than lose points. It rewrites the entire meaning of the weekend. Suddenly, Russell's pole looked less like strength and more like a missed opportunity. Hamilton's Ferrari victory looked even bigger. Antonelli's second place vanished. Wolff's control over the narrative disappeared. And the power unit issue became the only thing anyone wanted to talk about. That is the danger Mercedes faced. Because the failure did not happen in private. It happened in the most exposed possible position. A title-leading driver. A podium place. For laps from the finish. A Ferrari win happening at the same time. A second terminal power unit-related failure in just 3 races. No team can keep that quiet. Not because anyone proved Mercedes were hiding something. But because the failure itself was too loud. It forced the question into the open. What is really going on with this power unit? That is the question Wolff now has to answer. Not with emotion. Not with anger. Not with the usual confidence of a team principal who has survived pressure before. With proof. The failed unit is heading back to Brixworth, and that is where the first real answers have to be found. Mercedes need to know why oil pressure was lost. They need to know whether the failure was isolated. They need to know whether it connects to the earlier terminal failure. And most importantly, they need to know if it can happen again. Because if it can, the championship changes. That is why Barcelona felt so much bigger than a normal retirement. A normal retirement costs points. This one damaged trust. Antonelli had done enough to earn the result. He had the pace. He had the position. He had already shown he could fight through the race and place the Mercedes exactly where the team needed it. Then the car failed him. For a driver, that is one of the hardest losses to process. If you make a mistake, you can own it. You can study it. You can tell yourself, I will not do that again. But when the machine fails, the anger has nowhere simple to go. You did your part. The car did not. And that is where trust begins to crack. Antonelli is not just any driver in this situation. He is 18 years old, leading the championship, and carrying the weight of being Mercedes' future after Hamilton. Every result he scores matters. Every point he loses is magnified. Every setback becomes part of the bigger question of whether he is ready for the pressure. But Barcelona was not a question about whether Antonelli was ready. It was a question about whether Mercedes were ready to protect him. That distinction matters. Because a young championship leader can survive criticism if he knows the team is giving him everything. But if he starts to feel that the car itself is taking points away, the emotional balance changes. He may still say the right things. He may still sound calm. He may still trust the engineers publicly. But inside, the memory stays. 4 laps left. Second place almost secure. Then nothing. That is the kind of moment a driver carries into the next race. And Wolff knows it. He also knows Antonelli is not the only driver he has to manage. Russell is on the other side of the garage, and Barcelona was painful for him too. He took pole. He had the chance to define the weekend. He had the chance to remind the team that he was still the driver Mercedes could rely on to lead from the front. Instead, Hamilton won. Antonelli passed him. And the team's emotional focus shifted toward the young driver whose car failed. That creates a delicate problem. Russell will not want to become a side character in Antonelli's title story. Antonelli will not want his lost points treated like just another reliability issue. Wolff has to make both drivers feel seen, protected, and respected, while also keeping their rivalry from damaging the team. That is not easy. And it was already difficult before Barcelona. Canada had already shown the tension. Russell defended hard at turn 1 in the sprint. Antonelli ended up on the grass. Antonelli was angry on the radio. Wolff stepped in and told him to focus on driving, not complaining publicly, then made it clear the conversation would happen internally. That was Wolff trying to control the fire. Barcelona made the fire hotter. Because now the internal rivalry is mixed with reliability. And that is a dangerous combination. If both cars finish, teammate tension can be managed with meetings and rules. If one car fails from second place, everything becomes emotional. Who lost the points? Who deserves priority? Who gets the safer power unit approach next time? Who gets told to manage? Who gets allowed to attack? Those questions may not be said out loud immediately, but they exist. And inside a championship team, the questions people do not say can be the most dangerous ones. That is why the idea that Mercedes were hiding problems became such a powerful storyline after Barcelona. Not because the source proves a cover-up. It does not. But because Mercedes had problems that could no longer stay small. The reliability issue was now public. The failed unit was now under internal investigation. The new technical test from the governing body was part of the background. Rival teams were already alert to Mercedes' power unit performance. Ferrari had just won. Hamilton had just delivered one of the most painful victories possible for Mercedes. All of it came together. And when many problems connect at once, it can look like a scandal even before a verdict exists. That is the uncomfortable truth. Formula One does not wait for certainty before it starts judging. The paddock sees timing. It sees patterns. It sees who gains and who loses. It sees a power unit failure on a power circuit, after recent scrutiny, with the championship leader stopped near the finish. Then it asks questions. And Mercedes must now answer them on track. They have to prove that Barcelona was not the beginning of something deeper. They have to prove the speed does not come with an unacceptable reliability cost. They have to prove Antonelli can trust the car. They have to prove Russell still has equal reason to believe in the team. They have to prove Hamilton's Ferrari win was a painful moment, not a turning point. That is a lot to prove from one race. But Barcelona made it necessary. Because before Spain, Mercedes could still argue that the problems were separate. The driver tension was one story. The power unit scrutiny was another. Ferrari's rise was another. Antonelli's pressure was another. After Spain, they all pointed to the same place. A team that is fast, but not fully stable. And in a championship fight, stability matters as much as speed. The fastest car in the race still has to survive the final laps. The strongest driver pairing still has to work as one team. The most successful team principal still has to keep control when the walls start closing in. Barcelona showed Mercedes the cost of failing that test. And it showed every rival exactly where to apply pressure next. But the most dangerous part of Barcelona was not only what Mercedes lost. It was what everyone else learned. Because before the failure, Mercedes could still control the message. They could talk about pace. They could talk about pole. They could talk about the fight at the front. They could talk about Hamilton's strategy win as a painful, but normal, part of racing. After the failure, they lost that control. Suddenly, every conversation pointed back to the power unit. Not the lap time. Not the tire management. Not even the strategy. The power unit. And for Mercedes, that is the worst place for attention to go right now. Because the power unit was already the most sensitive part of their season. Rival teams had been asking questions about Mercedes' performance. The governing body had introduced a new hot compression ratio test. Barcelona was the first real power circuit under that new measurement standard. And Mercedes needed the weekend to prove that their speed was not only impressive, but sustainable. Instead, Antonelli stopped. That one image gave rivals exactly what they needed. Not proof of wrongdoing. Not a confirmed scandal. But doubt. And doubt is enough to change the way a championship feels. Ferrari do not need Mercedes to be guilty of anything. McLaren do not need a ruling. Rival engineers do not need a headline saying the Mercedes package is flawed. All they need is a reason to believe the Silver Arrows may be vulnerable under pressure. Barcelona gave them that reason. A championship leader retiring from second place with 4 laps left is not a small weakness. It is a public wound. It tells every rival that Mercedes can be attacked, not only on pace, but on endurance. Not only through strategy, but through pressure. Not only by beating them on track, but by forcing them to push the car into places where reliability becomes uncomfortable.